Stay with me as we talk about why preppers should seriously consider being vegetarian. Over the years, I've made some survival and prepping videos, and it's always been an interest of mine. In some ways, it's just smart, and it feels good to have a little insurance that you've taken care of yourself, you've taken care of your family, and no matter what the disaster that happens, at least you'll be okay for a little while. Common sense says that you should always stockpile some food in your house, at least at the minimum. Maybe have some sort of security system or weapon or something to take care of yourself. And then everything else is kind of revolving around water after that. How important is water? How to get sterile water, if you live in a place where you can't get water, what to do. There's a lot to do about water. Now, why am I talking about all this? Because I watch these survival shows on TV, and I see these prepping websites and things on YouTube, and most all of them revolve around taking care of yourself, homesteading, and growing your own food. But most of them focus on livestock. Now, I remember asking on other YouTube channels, like, why are you even bothering growing livestock? If you get in a real poop hits the fan scenario, it's going to be a real pain to deal with livestock. Despite your, let's not even, we'll just glaze over this part, the moral objections of eating meat, because that's not what I'm here to do. And there's lots of other websites that do it way better than me. I'm just going to talk about the logical facts and numbers. Is it smart to eat meat for your prepping plan? So let's dive into this a little deeper. Let's start with how much land do you need and what's the best use of your resources? Take a look at this chart. This chart represents how many people you can feed by growing something on 2.5 acres. If you grow beef, you can only feed a person. Eggs, a person. Milk, 2 people. Chicken, 2 people. But then we start hitting the vegetables, it dramatically increases. Wheat, 15 people. Corn, rice. Superstars are potatoes and cabbage. Potatoes are almost the perfect food. I mean, if you could only grow one thing and had to survive on it, potatoes are rock stars. The other thing we have to discuss is water. When you're in a survival situation, and depending on where you live, water can be a very big deal. Look how much water it takes to get beef, like hamburger beef, compared to something like broccoli or cabbage. Look at this chart. You're going to blow an enormous amount of water on livestock. Fresh water can be the absolute most important thing in a breakdown scenario, and people are not going to want to waste it on using it on cattle and chickens and livestock. Hands down, for nutritional value, as in cost per nutrient, vegetables just destroy meat. I mean, they're so much better of a deal. Look at this chart here. One other thing preppers forget about is things like soy and other vegetable matter you can make into fuel. It's just another nice side effect and bonus. Financially, it makes much more sense to just go out and stockpile a bunch of dried vegetables. I mean, you could get, again, bags of beans are dirt cheap and they last forever. Bags of rice. And even potato products, something like this pasta was only $1, this gnocchi, and it's almost all potato. Now, again, they're processed food. They're not as good as growing your own, but in a survival situation, you'll be thrilled to have them. And they're dirt cheap. You can get, for like $1,000, you can get a massive amount of food compared to spending $1,000 on some livestock. One thing in the prepping and survival community I'd like to see more of is to just be very vocal about stockpiling dried vegetables. Most of the videos I see are all about raising chickens or raising, cattle the smartest way they can. And yeah, they do grow some vegetables, but that's not their main source of food. Now, there's a big fallacy that you have to have protein from meat to live. Over the last, 100 years, the meat councils really promoted this idea that you have to have protein with each meal or you're going to shrivel up and die. The real facts, when you get past the propaganda, is you need very little protein to live. In fact, somewhere between 5 and 10% is ideal for your body to run. Even if you're doing hard labor and exercise, you can get a little more with vegetables, but there's lots of vegetables out there, if you're really hung up on this whole protein thing, that have more protein than meat. That being said, your body will make as much protein as it needs through carbs. Carbs are your best survival food because you can make anything you want out of carbs. You can make fat, you can make protein, make just about everything. And if you combine the right kind of carbs, you've got all your amino acids covered, your essential amino acids. With all this information presented, it's pretty easy to come to a logical conclusion that raising meat is much more expensive and a lot more risk, where it's much easier to raise vegetables. But the one thing where people get hung up on is, what are you going to do about your B12? And I hear it all the time. But a lot of meat eaters are terrible at digesting B12 and are deficient anyway. So, really, what happens is there is B12 all over. If you don't wash your vegetables, you can get B12, and that's how it was done historically when you ate bacteria. But being a prepper, you should prepare ahead of time. It's as easy as buying B12 supplements. There are some nuts, and soy especially has B12 in it. So like soy milks and stuff if you stock up. But one of my favorites is this stuff, nutritional yeast flakes. And if you put this, it's like a dried flake, and it's very, very easy to store for a long time. It doesn't really go bad. You can mix this up and it tastes nutty, and it has kind of like a cheesy consistency. It's a great fake cheese. If you really miss eating dairy products, man, nutritional flakes are awesome, and they're just loaded with B12. So my advice is to just plan ahead. It's still way cheaper to buy a bunch of these for a few years and just sprinkle it in your food for your B12 than to deal with livestock and cattle and chickens. It gets, I live up in New Hampshire, and I can't imagine dealing with getting up in the ice and snow for months of the year to go out and feed the damn livestock and make sure they're heated well, and having to give them a ton of food that I should be eating just to keep them warm. To me, that's like crazy talk when people are sacrificing so much just to keep a cow alive so they can eat some damn meat. It's like, eat some beans, eat some corn. It's so easy. So I'm hoping at least, if you've listened to me this far, some of this got through, and I'm sure in the comments you guys will probably beat me up, because I think it's, again, I'm not trying to tackle the whole moral issue of this. Economically, it just makes sense not to have livestock, and it's a lot less risk. In the comments, though, there's going to be some people that just absolutely can't fathom a life without meat, and they'll find any reason or excuse to justify doing all this. Especially in the prepper community, I noticed it's very heavy. Look, if really we got to a point where poop hit the fan, it's going to be much less important to have some bacon and some chicken, and when you could have years of rice for a couple $1,000s, to me, why not just set aside a little bit of that money you would be spending to build fences and to buy fertilizer for your livestock and, the medicines you have to do and the vet visits and all that other stuff. Take that money and just buy beans. Buy rice. It's so much easier. So much easier to store. So anyway, feel free to beat me up in the comments, and I'll see you at the next Tearing It Up Tuesday. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. Also, give this a thumbs up, a like, a share, or if you have something to add, remember to comment below. Thanks. Also, don't forget to stop by tarrinlupo.com. I have up videos that you can't see anywhere else. Currently, I have one on carnivorous plants and also how to make your own mead. All you have to do is go over and sign up.